boys and girls. Today we are moving on to lesson 3. This is going to be the second day of lesson 3. Today your learning goal is that you will find the volume of composite figures. Okay, so if we were looking at these two shapes, this would be like math in the real world. These are real world things that we see. One is the Washington Monument found in Washington, D.C., and then the other is just a regular traffic cone. If you were thinking about these, how are these two shapes alike? If you said they both have rectangular prisms as the base, you would be correct. Any ideas on how they are different? Well, one difference is that the top of them are shaped differently. So over here in the Washington Monument, it has that rectangular prism as a base, but on the top of that would be a small pyramid, whereas with the traffic cone, we have that rectangular prism as a base, but our top is actually a cone. Both of these shapes are also considered composite shapes, and that's when today we're going to be finding the volume of these composite shapes. So, for instance, I'm going to read the directions. It says, find the volume of each shape and then add them together. Round your answer to the nearest hundredth. This is really important because remember we are working with pi, so our decimals are going to be very long. So just round your answer to the nearest hundredth. So if I was looking at this, any ideas on what two shapes you see here? If you guessed cone and sphere, you would be correct. So let's first start looking at the cone. Does anybody remember the volume of a cone and how you found it? If you said 1/3 pi r squared times height, you would be correct. So if I was looking down here at my cone, I see that I have a radius of 4, and I see that I have a height of 10. Remember, the height is always perpendicular to that radius. So then I would fill in the information I know. 4 squared is 16. I multiply that times the height. That's 160. Then I multiply all three of those together, and I got to a volume of 167 and 47 hundredths cubic centimeters, and I did round my answer to the nearest hundredth. Okay, now this is considered a sphere, but if you notice, is the whole sphere there? No, it's not. So this is actually considered a semi-sphere, which means that when you are finding the volume of this, you need to divide it by 2 because you only have half of the shape, because the other shape is already down here and we already included that with the volume of the cone. Otherwise, you would have extra. Okay, so my volume of a sphere is 4/3 pi r cubed. And again, because I'm only doing half of that shape, I would divide it by 2. Okay, so again, I know my radius is 4, and then I solved my work over here. 4 cubed is 64. I multiplied all of these together and divided by 2 and got to an answer of 133 and 97 hundredths. Again, I rounded my answer to the nearest hundredth. And then in order to find that composite volume, I would add those two numbers together, which gave me a total volume of 301 and 44 hundredths cubic centimeters. A lot of friends are not labeling their units, so please make sure you are labeling. Remember, in volume, your units are cubed. Okay, moving on to another problem. Same directions as the last one, and you're going to round your answer to the nearest hundredth. If you notice on the bottom, this figure is definitely not drawn to scale, but you have what two shapes do you see here? If you said cylinder and cone, you would be correct. Now, if I'm looking at this cylinder here, the volume formula for a cylinder is pi r squared times the height. So I don't have a radius here, I only have the diameter. So in order to find the radius, I need to divide the diameter by 2. So 24 divided by 2 is 12. So then I could solve my problem over here. My radius would be 12. My height is over here. It is 9. So I took 12 squared and I got to 144. I multiplied by 9, which gave me a volume of 4,069 and 44 hundredths cubic feet. And then I did the volume of a cone. Our formula is 1/3 pi r squared times height. I'm going to have that same radius. And then my height now is 16 feet. So my work over here, I have 12 squared, which is 144. I multiplied that by 16 times pi, and then I took 1/3 of that and got to an answer of 2,411 and 52 hundredths. Then again, I would add those two numbers together to give me my total volume of 6,480 and 96 hundredths cubic feet. Okay, so in conclusion, when you are finding the volume of a composite shape, you need to find the volume of each individual shape and then add them together. Just be careful, make sure that if there's half of a shape like we had when we did the volume of the sphere, that you're dividing that by 2. All right, please make sure you are looking on Google Classroom for your assignment today. Have a great weekend.